My acquaintance with Wyatt dates back to our teenage years. For almost 3 decades, he has stood by me as my closest companion. We have navigated the tumultuous waters of high school heartbreaks, endured the trials of disastrous job interviews, witnessed marriages that blossomed and withered, and observed the gradual, unavoidable evolution of life's priorities. When she extended the invitation to her family's lakehouse for the weekend, it felt like a familiar occurrence. Two old friends reconnecting and sharing stories. What I never anticipated, what I could never have foreseen, was the way her brother Ryosuke would gaze at me that evening. It had been years since I last laid eyes on Ryosuke. In our younger days, he was the delightful younger sibling, sporting a playful smile and an air of confidence that was hard to resist. Forever the mischievous spirit, the one who swiped cookies from the tray and charmed every passing soul. He was 5 years our junior, and at that time it seemed like an insurmountable chasm. We were women. He remained a boy. Yet, as time often does, it had sealed that canyon in the most unexpected manners. On that Friday evening, I found myself arriving later than intended. The sun had begun its gentle descent, bidding farewell to the treetops as it cast elongated golden shadows that danced across the dock. The lake glistened with a warm copper hue, serene and mirror-like. Wyatt dashed out to welcome me, his arms outstretched, laughter spilling from him as it always did. We embraced, close and comforting, as she guided me through the door. The aroma of pine wood mingled with a sense of nostalgia, enveloping the house in a warm embrace. It had been more than 10 years since my last visit, yet everything exuded a familiar warmth, as if time had stood still. Warm throw blankets, nostalgic images of summer gatherings and carefree childhood swims. The familiar, creaky screen door groans as it swings open, and then there he was. In the kitchen, Ryosuke poured himself a glass of wine. He turned at the sound of our presence, and for a fleeting instant, the atmosphere in the room shifted motionless. He had indeed aged, but with a certain grace. Salt and pepper hair now threaded through his once jet-black curls, and his eyes, those piercing hazel orbs, held a softness that did not diminish their intensity. His face bore the subtle, rugged quality reminiscent of characters from classic westerns. Resided in Sirius, Amir? He inquired, his tone resonating with a depth I hadn't recalled. I smiled, shifting the weight of my overnight bag on my shoulder. In person. He let out a soft laugh and approached, enveloping me in a fleeting yet comforting embrace. In that moment I sensed it, more than merely the embrace. His arms held on just a moment longer than one might anticipate, a hint of nuance, deliberate in nature. As the evening deepened, we gathered on the back deck, the three of us, gazing at the stars as they began to pierce the velvet expanse of the night sky. Wyatt had retreated indoors to fetch dessert, leaving me in solitude with Ryosuke, the gentle hum of crickets providing a soft backdrop to our quiet moment. "I always thought you were too cool for me," he said suddenly, his gaze fixed elsewhere. I glanced at him, taken aback. "In your youth you were just a child. Your skateboard captured your attention far more than any conversation ever could." He wore a sly grin. "Perhaps. Yet, your presence did not escape my attention. You possessed this silent resilience. I observed the way you defended Wyatt during her conflicts with our parents. Your courage knew no bounds." I paused in silence, allowing his words to linger in the air. Amusingly, I remarked at last, "I had always believed that you were completely unaware of my presence." He turned to face me then, and in that moment, beneath the gentle hum of a summer night, The stars twinkled in the lake's surface. I beheld it, the gaze that speaks volumes. It lacked any overt signs. It lacked aggression. It was unlocked, defenseless, as if he were truly seeing me, not as I once was but as I had become. That gaze awakened a sensation within me that had long been dormant. It is quite peculiar indeed. How can it be that years pass without a single thought of someone, only for them to resurface and ripple through your existence like a stone cast into tranquil waters? Our conversations dwindled into silence after that moment. Wyatt came back, brimming with laughter and tales, and the moment slipped away. Yet, I found myself repeatedly aware of Ryosuke's gaze upon me as the night unfolded. It wasn't unsettling. Rather, it was tinged with a sense of curiosity, as if he were unearthing a treasure he never anticipated encountering. On the following day, we strolled along the water's edge. The atmosphere was invigorating, laced with the fragrance of pine and the subtle essence of lake weed. Wyatt stepped forward to answer a phone call, leaving Ryosuke and me to follow in his wake. "You still wear that necklace," he remarked, his finger gesturing toward the delicate silver charm that lay just above my collarbone. I cast my gaze downward and a smile crept across my face. Indeed, it was a cherished present from my late husband. I always keep it on. His gaze grew tender. "I recall the moment you acquired it. I found myself at the age of 16. Your visit for dinner was marked by an unceasing smile that lit up the room." "Those were good years," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Do you still sense a connection with him?" "Times," I confessed. "At times, it seems I am gradually uncovering the essence of my being in his absence." Ryosuke regarded me with a subtle yet profound sense of comprehension. "Perhaps that is the truest act of sincerity one could ever undertake." We came to a halt. The gentle breeze rustled the branches overhead, while a bird danced through the foliage. As I gazed at him, I perceived a softness and a sense of stability in his demeanor. Not the impulsive youth I once knew, but a man shaped by experience, who had borne the burdens of love and loss in his own unique manner. At that moment, a subtle change occurred. He extended his hand, gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His fingers grazed my cheek, and I found myself breathless, not from surprise, but from the sudden awareness of how long it had been since anyone had touched me in such a way, as if I held significance. I felt as though I was truly noticed. I remained still. He did not either. The air hung heavy with unvoiced feelings, a fragile tension binding us, until he abruptly retreated, breaking the silence with a cough. Apologies escaped his lips, he uttered. I never intended to cross any boundaries. Yet he had not. Absolutely not. I merely nodded, at a loss for words. That evening I found myself in solitude within my guest room, gazing out at the lake bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight through the window. My thoughts swirled like a silent tempest, remembrances, emotions, inquiries I had not summoned the courage to confront within myself for years. An unexpected turn was unfolding, and uncertainty loomed over the path ahead. Yet, after an extended period, a spark of curiosity ignited within me, urging me to seek the answers. The morning sun streamed softly through the delicate curtains of the guest room, bathing the wooden floorboards in a warm golden light. I lingered in bed more than I typically would, attuned to the faint melody of birds in the distance and the gentle sigh of the house as it settled into the day. After years of relentless haste, I found myself devoid of the familiar urgency that typically heralded the dawn. The lake house exuded a serene charm, a quality that seemed to stretch time itself. Perhaps it was the tranquil surface of the water, or the comfort of being in the company of those who understood my past. Perhaps it was the way Ryosuke had gazed at me once more. I was not merely envisioning it. As dawn broke, the three of us convened around the weathered farmhouse table, a silent witness to countless shared moments. Wyatt radiated cheerfulness, his words flowing with amusing anecdotes from the workplace. Yet I couldn't help but observe Ryosuke's attention subtly shifting in my direction. It lacked intrusion. Instead, it was a quiet contemplation, as if he were engaged in the process of unraveling a mystery. I must confess, I found myself engaging in the very same behavior. As Wyatt ventured into town to gather groceries, she extended an invitation for me to accompany her. However, I politely refused, expressing my desire for a moment by the water's edge. Honestly, I required some solitude to reflect. As I strolled toward the dock, a book clutched in my hand, I found myself hardly cracking its spine. The gentle caress of water against the timber, the faint echo of a loon in the distance, all conspired to envelop me in a serene contemplation. After some time, I sensed footsteps trailing behind me. The unmistakable presence of Ryosuke was evident, even without the need to glance back. "Would you mind if I joined you?" he inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. A smile graced my lips. "Certainly not." He settled next to me, maintaining a distance that felt just right, yet near enough for me to sense his presence. We lingered in a comfortable silence, one that felt more like a shared bond than an absence of words. Then he uttered his words. "I trust that my words did not cause you any discomfort yesterday." My gaze fell upon him. "You did not," he exhaled, as though he had been restraining it all along. "Excellent. For I truly intended it." That quickened my heartbeat ever so slightly. "What did you mean?" I inquired, despite the knowledge that lingered within me. The caress of a hand, the gaze that lingers. I wasn't merely indulging in nostalgia. The past held no significance. He pivoted to meet my gaze, the shimmering surface of the lake flickering in his eyes. "It is about the present moment. In the presence of your true self, I behold strength, beauty, kindness, and authenticity." The sound of such words was unfamiliar to me, not since my husband departed. Not since I had subtly withdrawn from the notion of being perceived in such a manner once more. "I find myself at a loss for words," I whispered. "There's no need for words," he responded. "I simply wanted you to be aware." The atmosphere surrounding us was electric, not driven by desire or anticipation, but by a profound stillness that spoke volumes, an unfiltered truth. It was a fleeting moment, one that could easily vanish if left unrecognized. With a gentle hesitation, I extended my hand, allowing it to rest softly upon his. His thumb caressed my skin with a tender touch. We lingered in that moment, our fingers entwined, while the lake sparkled under the gentle embrace of the late morning sun. "It has been ages since I last felt this way," I confessed. My voice trembled with sincerity. "Neither have I," he replied. And then we simply sat in silence, in unison. There is no requirement to occupy the quiet moments. As the evening unfolded following the meal, Wyatt found himself upstairs, immersed in a book. Ryosuke and I discovered ourselves in solitude within the den. The flames danced in the stone hearth, their flickering light weaving shadows across the walls. "My condolences regarding your husband," Ryosuke said gently. "Though time has passed, the weight of grief remains timeless." "No," I replied. taken aback by the unexpected warmth blossoming in my chest. Simply does not. There are days that unfold with a certain ease. For some, it simply creeps up unexpectedly. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. I have experienced loss as well. Several years ago, though we had not exchanged vows, our commitment was profound. Oncology, swift and merciless. I followed his gaze, observing what captured his attention. Underneath the tough facade, he bore a silent sorrow of his own, distinct from my own, yet aligned in its significance. Perhaps it was that very thing that forged our connection in that instant, more than mere attraction, more than mere nostalgia. Yet two souls, each bearing the weight of loss, found themselves at a crossroads, pondering the possibility of rediscovering the warmth of feeling once more. I rose to my feet, making my way to the window. The moon loomed low in the sky, draping the landscape in shimmering silver threads that danced upon the surface of the water. "Ryosuke," I uttered, my gaze still fixed on the glass. "What are we embarking on?" He approached and took his place beside me. "I'm not sure," he replied with sincerity. Yet I refused to feign indifference to what I truly feel. Whatever it may be, it undeniably exists. As I faced him, our gazes intertwined. There existed an absence of urgency, a tranquil space where a question hovered softly between us. He leaned in gradually, at a pace that would have allowed me to retreat had I chosen to do so. However, I chose not to. When his lips met mine, it wasn't a symphony of fireworks or the roar of thunder. The atmosphere was imbued with warmth, a gentle touch that invited exploration, a kiss that inquired, "Are you prepared? I desire you now." As our lips met, a profound realization stirred within me, resonating deep in my chest. I stood poised, anticipation coursing through me, prepared to experience emotions once more, prepared to unlock that sealed chamber within my heart, even if just a fraction. As we distanced ourselves, words eluded us. No necessity existed. The moment had conveyed its own message. That night, as I reclined in bed, guilt was a stranger to me, or trepidation, merely a possibility, the kind I had not allowed myself to hope for in ages. Before the sun had a chance to rise, I found myself awake, not from a sense of restlessness, but driven by a desire to witness the lake bathed in the soft light of dawn. There exists a certain magic in that hour. The gentle blue mist lingers in the moments before the sun's warmth graces the ground. The silence envelopes everything, as if the universe itself is pausing in anticipation. With a blanket draped over my shoulders, I stepped softly onto the back deck. The atmosphere was crisp, carrying a subtle fragrance of pine mingled with the scent of moist soil. The mist glided off the lake's surface, a secret softly shared with the heavens above. Suddenly, the sound of the door creaking open echoed behind me. "Ryosuke." He remained silent at first, simply joining me and offering a warm mug of coffee, which I accepted with a subtle nod. His presence now felt effortless, as if he were meant to be there, beside me, enveloped in the quietude. He confessed that sleep had eluded him. Neither do I. We stood side by side, the blanket draped over my shoulders gently grazing his arm with each shift of the breeze. That moment held an air of reverence. No sweeping proclamations. There shall be no haste in our advance. Two individuals gradually emerging from the confines of their own shadows. After a prolonged silence, he finally turned to face me. "You occupy my thoughts incessantly." I gazed at him, probing his expression for even the slightest hint of deceit. There existed not a single one. "This is indeed complicated," I murmured gently. Wyatt, she remains unaware. I find myself at a loss, uncertain of what this truly is. I'm not seeking answers, he responded. I wish to speak candidly with you. I took a deep breath, the comforting heat of the coffee anchoring me in the moment. We have endured far too much to engage in any games, I remarked. Allow me to be candid as well. This sensation is palpable and fearsome, yet also gentle. The word hung in the air, suspended between us. Compassionate, it transcended mere excitement or fleeting passion. It was a quest to uncover a semblance of tenderness in a world that had long since forgotten its softness. On that particular morning, our lips did not meet. We remained untouched. We existed, nothing more. And that, in its essence, conveyed a depth of intimacy surpassing any physical connection. Yet, naturally, the tranquility was destined to be fleeting. Wyatt made his way back from town just as the clock struck noon. She stormed through the door, radiating the familiar vibrancy that defined her, arms laden with ripe fruit and the latest weekend tales. She remained oblivious to the delicate change that had occurred between Ryosuke and me. Not at this moment. Yet I was acutely conscious of each glance, each pause, each fleeting smile. In the waning hours of the afternoon, the three of us embarked on a kayaking adventure. The sun shone brilliantly, casting a shimmering glow upon the water, while Wyatt's laughter echoed as she struggled to navigate with her characteristic clumsiness. Ryosuke and I lingered a bit further back, our paddles scarcely breaking the glassy facade of the lake. "I've missed this," Wyatt called out, his voice echoing in the distance. We all radiated joy in unison. Ryosuke cast his gaze in my direction. "I feel the same way," he replied. Yet, the manner in which he expressed it transcended mere nostalgia. It was around this moment, that evening following dinner, Wyatt retired to bed early, citing a headache as his excuse. I volunteered to assist with the cleanup, and Ryosuke lingered, drying dishes next to me in the inviting warmth of the kitchen's glow. Our hands grazed each other, a fleeting touch, and then once more. "I believe it's time for us to have a conversation," I murmured. He nodded, wiping his hands on a dish towel, then reclined against the counter. "My feelings for her run deep. She is my closest companion," I declared. If she were aware of the connection blossoming between us, it would alter the course of everything. Ryosuke inclined his head with a measured deliberation. "I understand that. However, allow me to pose a question to you. I have gazed upward. Would it truly lessen the pain if we chose inaction? If we continued to feign ignorance of what lies before us? Would that render it unreal?" I pressed my teeth into my lip. "Absolutely not." He advanced, drawing near enough for me to sense the warmth radiating from him, yet maintaining a careful distance that allowed me to choose the next move. "There's no need to hurry," he remarked. "I wish to be open, yet I am equally concerned about causing pain to either you or her." I inclined my head in agreement. "Perhaps we should embrace each moment as it comes." He smiled, a smile that enveloped you in a warm sense of security. That evening, I found myself unable to rest in the confines of my guest room. However, I did not find myself resting in his space either. We found ourselves once more on the deck, a blanket draped between us, gazing up at the stars. Our shoulders brushed, and our hands intertwined beneath the delicate fabric. There existed a distinct lack of urgency. Take your time. Only solace, embrace of warmth, an unspoken trust that grew stronger with each passing moment, silently understood without the need for words. In the stillness of the night, I leaned my head against his shoulder and let my eyes drift shut. I cannot fathom what tomorrow holds, I murmured. Neither do I, he responded. Yet for this evening I find myself present in this moment. The following morning dawned, cloaked in hues of gold. I found myself awakening on the deck, the blanket still draped over us, my head comfortably nestled against Ryosuke's shoulder. The lake lay still and luminous, the atmosphere quiet as though the universe paused, anticipating the unfolding of the next moment. Initially, I remained still. I had no desire to. The gentle cadence of his breath brought a sense of solace. The heat of his arm encircling my back offered a cocoon of safety, and the delicate rustle of the leaves overhead whispered a serene lullaby. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I found myself free from the nagging anticipation of impending misfortune. I experienced a profound sense of being in the moment. At last we found ourselves sitting up. He stretched and offered me a gentle smile, the kind that graces the morning before the world calls for our focus. I could become accustomed to this, he remarked. I remained silent, simply extending my hand toward him. Yet, as is often the case, reality arrived at the door before long. An hour later, Wyatt discovered us on the deck. She emerged, 2 mugs of coffee in hand, mid-sentence about a ludicrous squirrel that had somehow found its way into the pantry. In that moment she hesitated. Her eyes darted toward me, signaling our closeness, as our fingers gradually slipped away from each other, yet not swiftly enough to escape notice. Silence enveloped her, words unspoken. Not at that moment. She effortlessly passed me the mug and settled down beside us, silent. We remained silent about it throughout the morning. Yet I sensed the change, a subtle tremor beneath my skin. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself unable to evade it any longer. I discovered Wyatt on the back porch, seated in solitude, legs drawn up beneath her. Though her eyes were fixed on the trees, I sensed her mind wandered far beyond their branches. "May I take a seat?" I inquired. She inclined her head in agreement. I settled beside her, the air thick with an electric tension, reminiscent of distant thunder rumbling in the background. "I ought to have shared with you," I started, "the story of Ryosuke and me. I never intended to conceal it. I simply..." Uncertainty lingered within me, as I had yet to grasp its true nature. The mystery remains elusive to me. For what felt like an eternity, she remained silent, cradling her cup of tea, her gaze lost in the depths of the forest beyond. "He's my brother," she finally confessed. "You are my dearest companion. Envisioning the two of you together feels oddly surreal." "I understand," I murmured softly. "I assure you I was equally taken by surprise." Yet she pressed on, glancing in my direction. "I am aware of the trials you've faced. The nights have surely felt desolate for you. Your eyes reveal it, even behind your smile." I fought to hold back the tears. "And if someone," she added, her voice trembling just a touch, "if someone is offering you a chance to feel alive once more, I would never obstruct that path." I extended my hand toward hers, and to my surprise, she did not withdraw. "Thank you," I murmured. Yet, with a subtle smirk, she remarked, "I'll need a bit of time to acclimate to this notion." I chuckled, a brief, unexpected sound that seemed to bring a sense of liberation. "That seems reasonable." We lingered in silence for a time, not uncomfortable, but rather in a shared understanding. It felt as though we had penetrated a profound layer, emerging on the other side with a newfound honesty between us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the water, Ryosuke and I strolled along the lake for what would be our final walk before my departure. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a gentle amber glow that danced upon the surface of the water. The trail lay in serene stillness, with only the soft crunch of pine needles underfoot and the faint, distant call of a bird echoing through the trees. I uttered gently, not anticipating a fairy tale. "I'm not offering one," he said, a smile playing on his lips. "Merely a glimpse of authenticity, an invitation to delve deeper." I faced him, grasping his hand gently. "I desire that as well." He inclined toward me, pressing his lips gently against my forehead. It wasn't a kiss filled with fervor or theatrical flair. Rather, it was gentle and filled with affection. As the moment arrived to part ways, there were no vows exchanged, no theatrical displays, merely an embrace that held a weight of significance, unspoken yet profoundly understood by both of us. As I departed from the lake house, the sky deepened into shadows behind me, while the road lay before me, tranquil and unending. As I reflected on all that had transpired, I contemplated the essence of loving once more, not with the reckless enthusiasm of youth, but with the profound understanding that comes from having experienced loss. Ryosuke's quiet strength lingered in my thoughts, his presence resembling a steady current rather than a crashing wave. As I reflected on my own journey, I realized the extent to which I had shut myself away, and perhaps, just perhaps, I was starting to let the light in once more. Not for another, but for myself.